All right, today we're jumping right into a really explosive article from the Shasta Beacon. It paints a picture of the whole Jack Smith investigation into Donald Trump, not as a search for justice, but as a full-blown political witch hunt. So let's break down exactly how they make their case.
Okay, so right from the jump, the article paints this really dramatic picture. This opening line sets the stage. It's framing the special counsel not as some neutral investigator, but as a man on a mission with a single target. And that's the lens, that the author wants you to look through for this whole thing.
And look, the Shasta Beacon does not pull any punches here. The core idea is simple. This was a political hit job from the get-go. And they argue that this testimony we're talking about, that was the grand finale, the moment where, in their view, it all came crashing down for everyone to see.
So you might be asking, how do they even begin to back up a claim that big? Well, according to the article, it all starts at the very top. The accusation is that the Department of Justice itself was, weaponized, turned into a tool for politics, not for justice.
And the first piece of evidence they put on the table, it's all about the money. $35 million. The article really hammers this point, framing it as this huge pile of taxpayer cash spent on an investigation they say had a predetermined outcome anyway.
Okay, so this is where they really get into the weeds. The argument is this whole thing wasn't about finding the truth. It was a PR war. They talk about tainting jury pools, basically leaking stuff to the media to make someone look guilty before they even get to court. The article's point is that all of this was a calculated move to mess with the presidential campaign, using the full power of the law.
And to show you just how high the emotions were running, the article throws in this quote directly from Donald Trump. It's raw, it's unfiltered, and it's there to make a point. This wasn't some quiet, sterile legal process. According to this view, it was an all-out political street fight.
All right, let's switch gears and look at the timeline. The article lays out a series of events, step by step, to build its case that this wasn't a real investigation, but a planned campaign of sabotage. So the author's point here is that these dates aren't random. It's a story. It starts with what they call a sketchy beginning, a problem with the paperwork that they say is a huge red flag. From there, it moves to accusations of spying on Congress, then indictments dropped right in the middle of a campaign, and then, poof, the cases get dropped right after the election. The article is basically screaming, see, it was all a political plan. And this right here, this is a moment from the hearing that the article really zeroes in on. The quote is used to suggest that, hey, maybe not remembering who swore you in isn't just a whoops moment. The article frames it as a sign of a shaky foundation for the whole investigation from day one.
Okay, now we're getting into the real courtroom drama. The article calls these bombshell moments from the hearing itself, the kind of exchanges that they say just blew the whole case wide open.
This quote is a big one for the article's argument about the evidence. Hearsay is basically just a game of telephone. He said that she said. The point the article makes is that the entire case was supposedly built on this stuff, and that their star witness, her testimony was apparently so shaky they couldn't even use her in court.
But wait, there's more. The article also goes after where the evidence came from. It says a lot of it was handed over by the January 6th committee, and then it alleges that same committee destroyed a ton of its own records. So the implication is pretty clear, right? They're suggesting the whole investigation was based on evidence that was, at best, incomplete, and at worst, deliberately tampered with. Then the article pivots to another sticky subject, paid informants. We're talking over $20,000 paid out to confidential human sources. The article doesn't portray this as normal investigative work. Instead, it's framed as a taxpayer-funded slush fund for, political ops. And then we have the I don't recall defense. The article makes a huge deal out of this, saying the phrase was used dozens and dozens of times. The author's take? This wasn't a bad memory. It was a deliberate tactic to dodge the tough questions. Okay, so let's zoom out for a second. What's the big takeaway here, according to the Shasta Beacon? They argue this isn't just one flawed investigation. No, they see it as a symptom of a much bigger, much scarier problem. And that problem has a name, lawfare. The article defines it as literally weaponizing the law. It's the idea of using courtrooms and legal battles not to find justice, but to fight a political war, to try and take out an opponent without having to beat them in an election. And this quote is sort of the mic drop for the article's entire argument. It's presented as a final, bitter irony. The very testimony that was supposed to defend the investigation, well, in this view, it ended up being the thing that completely torched the credibility of the man in charge. And this is the final thought the article leaves you with. It's a pretty heavy question, right? The point is to make you think beyond just this one case, beyond this one person. The author is asking, if this can happen, if the system can be turned into a weapon, who's to say it couldn't happen to anyone? So there you have it. That's the breakdown of the Shasta Beacon's perspective on the Jack Smith testimony. Remember, what we've walked through here is an explainer of one particular source with a very strong point of view. As always, we definitely recommend you check out the source material and decide for yourself.